This is a fantastic company. It connects people who want jobs with people who are offering jobs. And if you are neither, you can still be on the platform and derive some pleasure from scanning and reading and understanding trends as far as the job force is concerned. Welcome, Ashutosh. It's wonderful to have you here with us today. There's so much to unpack here. The first thing being that we are having a physical event here. Most of us are now working from office. And in the last 2-3 years, we also saw work from home and a hybrid environment. Before we sort of get anywhere ahead, I want to ask you a question that you can draw from all the data that is available with your company. How many of Indians today who are in formal jobs are working from office, and how many are still continuing to work from home?
Siddharth, first of all, thank you for having me here, and it's a pleasure to meet you in person. We're talking about hybrid. Last time you and I talked, we were virtual, so it's a pleasure to be here and meet you in person. I don't have the numbers on how many people are working virtually, but the thing is, the flexibility is the word. Flexibility is the way of work which is going to happen. I think we did a research very recently. LinkedIn completed 20 years of existence, and we did a research on the 20th anniversary. And it very clearly came out that, people are saying that working remotely will be the future of work. I think roughly 70–80% of people said that we want to work from home, we want the flexibility. In fact, when you think about people when they're applying for jobs now, flexibility is a very core part of their evaluation of the company and the job, right? They're saying, I want to understand your flexible work policies. How do I work remotely if required? How do I work with my colleagues? When do I need to come to office? These are questions which are becoming important. In fact, it's the nature of the current economic environment where some of these questions have become like a second parameter in their conversation. Compensation is number one again.
Yeah.
But in the middle of the pandemic, that was the number one thing. People were not even talking compensation.
Let's do a test.
Sure.
You said middle of pandemic. Let's do a sample here. I'll request the entire audience, given a chance, and if your boss is sitting next to you, please don't raise your hand. But how many of you would like to work remotely and work from home?
There you go. That's a good answer. It's not black and white.
Okay, it's not black and white. What's the gray then?
No, so I think there are two things. First, I think when we talk hybrid, it doesn't mean everybody is remote.
Okay.
Right? Hybrid means there are certain days you're in office and certain days you're working from home. There are certain things which people, even the employees themselves say that it's important to be in the office. For example, I'll give you an example. Product teams, the R&D teams, when they work together, when they do design work, they whiteboard a lot, and that's whiteboarding is very, very effective when you're together in the room, right? Now, when you're coding, do you need to be together? It's a very individual task. You're coding, right? So that's something which you can do from home.
So since there is a sectoral bias, if I may use that word, explain this desire to work remotely from a sectoral industrial point of view. What does the massive data that's available within your network tell you? And folks, please do remember, India is the #2 market after the United States for LinkedIn in terms of members. Ashutosh, do you disclose the numbers of members?
Yeah, we are 103 million members in India. We are
103 million members. So
we just hit 100 million in February of this year.
Okay, so that's roughly, I would say, 20-odd% of the overall formal government force, for example, although there are people from all over the sector. But coming back to my question, what is the sectoral preference, sectoral bias?
I think more than the sectoral, we should divide it in the context of the kind of work you are doing, right?
Okay.
So let's start with, if you are a front office or if you are a customer-facing person, right, and your customers visit your office, then you have to be in the office. Now, I'm a data processing person where I have no front-facing job. I'm primarily doing data work. I can be anywhere. Right? So it's not so much divided by the sectoral, it's the function, it's the kind of work you're doing that decides, that's the way companies are treating which function or which of these roles can be in the office or some of these roles can be hybrid. right? So that's the way. I think sectoral is just too wide a landscape or a canvas to paint together, right? So I would rather divide it by functions.
Since you recently had a report on the changing workforce landscape, do take us through some of the highlights. And as a quick follow-up before you answer that, is the choice to work remotely being left to employees, or is it being dictated by cost concerns at the employer's end, just as one factor of cost?
I think I don't claim to know it all, but like there might be some companies which might do it for cost purpose, but it's the flexibility. It's a demand by the employees these days, right? There's the work-life balance, which has become literally the top 5 parameters when people judge the job. The work-life balance has become really, really important, right? So I think it's more driven by the employees. They want that flexibility, they want that work-life balance, and they're demanding it.
What other insights can you share with us from the report?
Yeah, so one of the most important insights, and which has been literally the topic of the day for last few hours, is the skills first, right? Okay. So what we are seeing across, not globally as well as in India, is that skills first is the new wave of hiring, right? Let's go back to how we used to hire, and you know, I've been around in the industry for 20 plus years. I call this templatized hiring. So when you hire or when you give a job description, you say, I want somebody from this school with this specialization, so many years of experience in this company, and that's somebody I want. It's a template you're giving to the recruiter. You're not even talking about what kind of capabilities and skills this person will have. Now this is shifting to a skills first hiring. And this is happening in multiple ways. For example, recruiters on LinkedIn are able to identify people through skills which they have there on the profiles. So in our recruiter software, which a lot of recruiting industry uses to identify people, skills is the way which you can say, I want a Java skill, somebody with so many years of experience with Java skills, and then it'll throw up all the people who have done that, right? Not so much about saying I want somebody from X school or a Y company, right? So industry is slowly adopting the skills first hiring, and skills is going to be the new currency of the future, right? So at LinkedIn, we are very much focused on building this narrative along with the various different stakeholders in the industry, which includes companies, which includes universities and colleges. Like last panel talked a lot about how it's just not about the curriculum, it's also acquiring those skills, which is very, very important, right? So skills first is a very, very important thing which has come out in our research, and that's something which we are very focused as company.
You have lots of numbers on that.
I know, I'm going to share some numbers, so yeah, some of the numbers. So I think one of the things which we have seen in the past, that when people would go into a job and they choose a function, so I choose marketing or I choose finance, I would stick to it. It's more I would just grow into that function in the company or in another company, right? I would not move out of that function, right? What we are seeing, and that research shows that more and more people are comfortable now changing functions, right? So 8 out of 10 Indians said that they are very much open to the idea of pivoting their roles into a new function, right?
Is this a post-COVID feature? 8 out of 10 Indians are open to change?
This is based on our members data, right? Okay. So our 100 million plus member data.
Is there a pre or post-COVID kind of difference?
No. This happened like in February. Okay. So this is, you can say it's post-COVID. But the idea is that people realized during COVID that, I think if I want to enhance, upskill, reskill myself. There were certain industries which were not doing so well. So people use our platform to reskill and upskill. And then they said that I'm going to pivot into a job function. And that's where one of the things which we are talking a lot in the industry is transferable skills. So if you have the transferable skills, you can pivot very easily into roles which need those skills. So that's another thing which we are seeing from a data perspective, that people are getting comfortable saying I'm comfortable changing functions, pivoting into new functions. We call something as career pivots, right? So you were doing something different, and then you suddenly pivoted into a different company, different function. And more Indians are saying they're very comfortable doing that. So 84% in the research said that they are very, very comfortable doing those career pivots.
Okay, I want to ask you a question that perhaps a fresher may have in mind. If he was hearing or watching what you were saying. I have to take a degree because that's the way the system works. but I may have skills, and these skills may allow me to actually do better than someone with a great technical degree or a managerial degree. How does that person approach the current job market, Ashutosh?
Say more. I couldn't get the question. Can you repeat it again?
How does a fresher approach the skill requirement that recruiters are seeking today? How does a fresher approach that today?
So it's learning is the most important thing. So what's happening is that continuous learning is really becoming the focus, right? So even if you are a fresher or you are a mid experienced executive or a senior executive, people are focusing a lot on learning. Just to again give you data points, India, LinkedIn India, members on LinkedIn in India registered 4.6 million hours on LinkedIn Learning, which is 2x of what happened in outside India, right? So really people are focused on learning. So as a fresher as well, you have a responsibility to continuously learn and reskill or upskill your skills so that you are becoming more relevant to the jobs out there, right? Let's take a current example, which is also a topic of a big discussion, AI.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So AI was discussed throughout the different sessions again. And AI again, what our numbers are showing, what our research is showing that AI is not so much about displacement of the jobs. It's about, certain jobs will become more productive. There'll be a different layer of productivity which will come because of the AI. And the human, and I think some of the last panel talked about it, the human brain will still remain relevant. But it's important to meet head-on the AI revolution which is coming by upgrading your skills, right? So I think each function, each job will have a certain flavor of what generative AI can do in that function, what changes can happen because of generative AI. And it's important for our responsibility to learn those skills, to understand how will that impact come. And again, I'm not saying it like just blandly. At LinkedIn, we have made 100 courses free on AI, so that people can go out there and learn about those.
And what has the uptick been like?
It's been pretty strong. And again, whenever we made LinkedIn learning courses free across the world, India has been the #1 country. The uptick has been high, and it can be very well because of the number of members we have in India. But the same uptick has happened on this generative AI courses, which we have launched free till the end of June this year.
Is there any data that you can share with us as to what Indians are searching for on LinkedIn? What kind of jobs do you see the maximum kind of searches for?
Yeah, I think before I answer the question, you at the start said as well that LinkedIn is very much a job platform where people come for jobs and company hire.
It's now evolving also into a knowledge sharing platform.
Correct. So that's what I was coming. The knowledge seeking behavior on LinkedIn is increasing a lot. And India is the #1 country again globally where knowledge seeking behavior is happening a lot. So I think a lot of people want to learn from your experience, my experience. And when we share that on the platform and the feed, a lot of people are interacting with that knowledge so that they can gain from it, right? That knowledge seeking behavior is very, very strong. Networking is very strong. When in the middle of pandemic and even after the pandemic, the networking has been very, very strong on the platform. People are using it to connect. There are business transactions happening. I don't know how many startup founders have told me that they have found funding by just transacting on the LinkedIn with the VCs, right?
Okay.
So the networking part is really, really strong as well. Learning is very strong. So it's not just about jobs. There are multiple value propositions which are becoming very strong. And the last one is the feeling of community. So I'm in tech, I'm in retail, I'm in different industries. I find people who are in those jobs, those companies, and that feeling of community, sharing knowledge, exchanging ideas, exchanging things. Even when you see layoffs happening on the platform or people reaching out, people are trying to help each other. Right? People comment on that piece of news saying, commenting for a better reach so that you can leverage my network to find better jobs.
So the LinkedIn system in a way provides virality to someone who's been laid off and is looking for a job.
Virality, and it's just not about layoffs. It's just not the virality. It's just the feeling of community that I'm sharing with you as part of the community. These are the things I need. These are the things which are matter to me. Can you help? And that help-seeking behavior is happening a lot on LinkedIn as well.
The job market in some ways has been tight, especially in certain sectors over the last several quarters. What are Indian employers doing therefore on the platform? What kind of trends or shifts you are seeing in hiring decisions?
There are two things which I am seeing from the companies, right? One is the strong focus on developing a very strong learning and development ecosystem within the company. There are two forces which are driving this. One, companies want their employees to upskill, reskill, right? And number two, employees are asking for it. Like one of the another parameters which is very strong in the jobs when people look for jobs is what kind of personal development I'll go through when I join the company. And that's where the strong learning and development function plays a very big role, saying I'm going to help you develop new skills, upskill, and reskill, right? So that's becoming very important. Another thing which is happening is internal mobility. So I think our CEO said that, you know, your next employee can be your current employee. Your next hire is somewhere in your company. You don't
need to look outside.
Yeah, you just don't need to look outside. Like if you map your skills and map those skills which are available in the new job you're advertising for, maybe you'll find that employee inside. So in fact, internal mobility is becoming really, really strong, right? So along with L&D and internal mobility, those two things I'm seeing very strongly coming up.
Who are the bulk of people who use LinkedIn in India? What kind of people are they? Can you sort of map out a typical LinkedIn user in India?
Yeah, so I think I've been with LinkedIn now almost 10 years. If you would have asked that question 10 years back, it would have been a very different thing. Now I think it's cross-section. It's all, so students definitely, students literally when they're graduating, like LinkedIn profile is a must, right? And they are using it to network with people. Anybody who's entering the job market, right? As a career starter, as a mid-year or senior, LinkedIn profile is a must. Right, those are the people who are networking heavily on the platform. We are finding a lot of people coming from social sector now, helping it, you know, other parts of the society, helping them. So I think it's cross-section of our society today. It's not like one particular industry is dominating or one particular industry is more predominant on the platform. It's really a cross-section of our society.
I'm going to do another show of hands here. Those who are recruiters in this gathering here, how many of you have recruited successfully through LinkedIn? Can I just see a show of hands first?
Okay, the few recruiters.
Okay. And how many of you have recruited without using LinkedIn? Okay.
Okay.
Ashutosh, what does that tell you?
I know. I think we should have a chat, like people who have recruited without LinkedIn. See, I think, you know, I think there are, you know, there are certain sections who still believe that there's a way to recruit outside LinkedIn, which is fine, right? What I'm saying is when you are looking at finding efficiency in recruitment, and when you have such a large ecosystem of people with skills, with experience on the platform, there's a certain amount of efficiency which I think everybody should leverage and enjoy.
Okay, before this session, a young colleague who's just sort of gotten into the profession, wanted me to ask you, how does one develop a great LinkedIn profile so that, you know, it looks very nice? Chamkaye kaise apni profile ko?
Yeah.
If you can share that formula, if there is one.
Yeah, you know, I think we call it, you know, how can you shine your LinkedIn profile? So I'm going to give you some tips. So first of all, your LinkedIn...
I'm going to try and remember that because I can't take notes while you're saying that.
No, I'll take a session for you, Siddharth, don't worry. Your profile picture is the first thing. So when you look at somebody's profile or when you're searching for people, the 10 options come up, right? Unless you're looking for a very specific person, when you look, the first thing you see is a profile picture. And what I see is some of the younger people, they don't pay so much focus on the kind of picture they're putting. LinkedIn is a
amazing. Really, is that what? Everybody is taking selfies. The younger generation is born mobile. I mean, it's native to the mobile world.
No, it's not about taking selfies, but the kind of picture you're putting, right?
Okay.
Yeah, you know, it should be a professional picture, right? So, I don't say the kind of pictures I've looked at the LinkedIn where people are, I'm on a vacation. And there's a, I'm not looking at your hills behind you. I'm looking at you.
And certainly not Bermuda shorts.
not Bermuda shorts or any other thing which you have in your hand. So first is a very professional picture. That's very important. Number two is the headline or the title. When you build a picture, they ask you for a couple of lines to describe yourself, right? Who you are as a professional, what you are doing, and that's very important.
So you shouldn't say stuff like dreamer, enthusiast, loves coffee. What's the right thing to write there?
Yeah, I think the things which describe you, and remember,
the skills or as a person?
As a person.
Okay.
As a person. We have a different section on skills where you can write the skills which you have. Now we also have a way where you can connect some of your work experience or even your education to those skills. Because ultimately what's happening in the skill ecosystem is you can't just say I have the skill, you have to demonstrate the skill. So for example, if I say I have management skill of managing people, then I can reference back to my country manager experience saying this is where how I've demonstrated that skill, right? So summary, your paragraph about you, where you can say all the things you want to tell the people who are reading the profile. The best way to think about is if you're talking to a recruiter, and one of the most common questions is, tell us about yourself.
Practically the conversation starter.
Yeah. How would you describe yourself? And that same thing should go in that summary section. And then ensuring that all parts of work experience is covered. One of the things which, especially with the young people I'm seeing, is they're very, shy about putting stuff in their profile, right? If you have done a project, so in a B school, you all do projects. Write about that project, what you have done there, what you have learned in that project. Because as when you are passing out of the school, you don't have enough professional experience to show, but all of those projects become very, very important, right? So skills, professional photo, a good summary, a good about yourselves, those are the things which are very important in LinkedIn profile.
Okay, that's absolutely great advice, and we are going to sort of make sure that it gets to everyone. I want to also ask you to respond to some of the discussions, and we had a power-packed, business school directors conversation. I know you were listening intently to that. A lot of the schools provide ESG courses. IMA director said that, whatever is trending, you also have to, whatever is shining, you also have to provide that. As someone who's been managing LinkedIn and has this massive amount of data and insights, what do you think business schools in India need to do to skill students better? What would you say top of mind?
Sure. I'll give two perspectives. One as LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And then second as personal. I'm also a B school graduate. Actually, Professor Bhaskar, who was speaking, the director from Ahmedabad, he has taught me.
Oh, wow.
So I was just telling him that I'm your student. So there are two parts. First is, I think we need to really look at the curriculum, right? And make sure that curriculum talks to what industry wants. And, really from an employable skill. I'll talk more about what do I mean by that. So when I went to B school, and now this is me speaking, right? When I came out and worked in industry, my ability to relate what I have learned and using that in my work was, let's say, there's a certain proportion of it, right? I want that proportion to be higher. What it means is just making it more practical, more relatable to what industry needs, right? That's a very, very important part, right? So curriculum, making the curriculum more current, tuning it to the industry. It's not about the shining objects, and there was a lot of discussion on the shining objects. I agree, but really, really tuning it to the what the industry needs and the applicability of that, right? So if you're teaching me critical thinking skills, which is, I think, for me, is the #1 skill which we should develop in the business school. Critical thinking skill, problem solving skills. That's what we do every day in jobs. We are thinking about, we're looking at data, we are trying to solve problems. We should be focusing on developing those skills, and by practically, giving the use cases, the case studies, putting students in those situations, so they can solve that problems, right? Okay. And one last thing, which has nothing to do with the question, and I just want to add that when we think about business school, and as somebody coming from a company which talks a lot about networking, one of the most important things which we learn at business school is the network which I built.
Yep.
So at LinkedIn, we talk about, you build your network based on where you grow up, the schools you go to, right? And then the companies you work to. My network from my business school is one of the most premium, one of the most valuable things I have developed over a period of time. Right? As the batch sizes are increasing, when I go to business schools, even my own school, I ask, do you know everybody in your batch? Right? Have you developed a relationship, which is very difficult when there are 600 people in the batch. We were 200 people when I was in the school. But still, the point is that emphasis on networking, because these are the people, ultimately, which will help you expand in the future. I found my bunch of my jobs through my batchmates in IIM Lucknow, because they were on my LinkedIn profile. Right?
Absolutely.
So I think, it's just not about those hard skills which you're learning. It's about building that network, because that network is going to be the most important thing. Network is the new net worth. That's what we say at LinkedIn.
Network is the new net worth. That I don't think there could have been a better ending to this short but extremely insightful session with you, Ashutosh Gupta. As always, thank you very much. And do remember the lessons. If you're a fresher, that clip will be available on Business Today Digital Properties. How do you sort of get the best LinkedIn profile? And for everyone else, critical thinking. And remember, network is net worth. Thank you very much for sharing with us those mantras for success.